Welcome to the Self-Care Sound Mind podcast. In this space, we're going to talk about the losses we don't always have the language for. Because grief isn't only about losing someone we love. Sometimes it's the end of a relationship, a friendship that's faded, a dream that's changed, or the life we thought we'd have. In this series, we're naming all kinds of grief that often go unseen, and we're going to learn how to move through them with compassion. On tonight's episode, we're going to talk about identity grief, grieving the version of yourself that you expected, the life that you thought you would have. And tonight's special guest is Noni-Ife. She is an LCSW, an author, and a private practice owner. Tag a friend, share the post, let them know that the Self-Care Sound Mind podcast is live. Follow us at Kiera More Therapeutic Services for more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Self-Care Sound Mind podcast. I am so excited to come to you with episode 3, which is the grief we don't talk about, grieving the life that you thought you would have. This series is so near and dear to my heart because I do a lot of grief work. But as you know, grief doesn't just end when it comes to death. When people hear that word, that's usually what they think about. But some of our deepest griefs and the griefs that we carry, the feelings that we have, it really doesn't have anything to do with physically losing someone. Sometimes it's a loss of a dream, a relationship, or the version of yourself, or the life that you expected. And in this season, we're going to talk about healing those griefs, healing in ways that you might not have thought were possible. So tonight's episode is going to be super exciting. I think this topic is one that deserves a lot more time, a lot more space, and a lot more discussion because we all have the life, a plan, something that we think of even as a child of what we think life is going to be. We all have this picture perfect life. And then we have reality. And sometimes our realities do not match the lives that we thought we would have. So I'm so excited to introduce our special guest, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, what she does, and then we're going to jump right in it. Let's welcome Noni-Ife Taylor, LCSW. Hey,
Hi.
Noni.
Hi, how are you?
I am good, and I'm also excited. Today has been a day, but I'm
Mhm.
excited to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it all day, and I can't wait to share this information because while everyone's experience with death varies, everyone's experience with grief, though, it while it also varies, it's still very much real, right? So some
Mhm.
people are blessed to go through their lives and they don't experience any major loss. Grandma
Mhm.
lives to 107. Wonderful, right? And
Mhm.
then there are people who have the exact opposite experience. But somewhere along the way, we are grieving things that we didn't even know could be categorized or labeled as grief. And so
Mhm.
I feel like this topic is uh, a great one. So, first, before we jump into it, tell us about yourself, what you do, tell us about your book, all the things.
Absolutely. So, hi guys, my name is Noni-Ife Taylor. I am a licensed clinical social worker full time. I am a pediatric palliative care social worker, as well as a mental health therapist. For the past 5 years, I worked with older adults in hospice and palliative care. I do have a journal called Beyond Goodbye, a Healing Companion. Um, there you go, special plug, which is a grief journal for individuals who feel two areas. One, not really knowing all of what grief is. Like grief is such a multi-layer experience, and kind of like what you said, it's just not just someone who died physically, but it's
Mhm.
all these losses that unfortunately we don't name because we don't know. And so
Right.
how do we navigate something that we don't have a name for? And so it's that, to provide some education on grief, to normalize that, And the other component is for the individual who may feel like they don't have the time to
Mm,
grieve
mhm.
because of all these logistical tasks. Like life moves on, you still have to continue on with life. And so
Yes,
it is meant to be a tool just to give someone 5 minutes, 10 minutes to honor where they are
I love.
because grief takes, yes, but grief teaches. And
Mm,
so whatever practices one had prior to the loss,
mhm.
grief will bring it around for some course correction.
I love that.
It's
Say that again. You said grief takes, but it also.
teaches.
Mm, I love
So, like, what's no longer sustainable? Like, a lot of people may ask, like, what does normal look like?
that. Mhm,
That's not there, right? And so,
mhm,
redefining your world may include, like, not doing some practices that you
mhm,
once done before,
mhm.
because it's just not sustainable for where you're at. And so that's essentially what the grief journal is for. It's not meant to fix, but it's meant to just be a tool.
And I love that, and it segues exactly into what we're talking about with that teaching component, right? Because
Mm,
when we think about the identity we want, when we think about the life we think we're going to have, or the life that society has conditioned us to believe is the right way, the way that we should be,
mhm,
we should be, would be, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
you know, but honestly, in many cases, we have to let go of timelines, expectations, and life milestones, right?
mm,
And
mm,
that's not easy to do
mm, mm,
because we attach ourselves, our self worth, and who we are to this idea of what we have.
mhm.
And what we have changes. So
Yes.
then what?
Yes.
That's where that sense of loss of identity comes from.
Mhm,
And I know for me, and even in changing my language and how I talk to children, I don't ask them anymore, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because you're still going to be human. You're still going to be you. You're going to be your mother's child. You're going to be, you know what I mean? You're going to be
mhm.
a sibling. You're going to be the human being you were created to be. What do
Absolutely.
you want to do as a
Yes.
career? Is how
Yes.
I ask those questions now because we are putting so much of our identity into what we do and what we have. So
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about that and the grief that we carry about the life that we may imagine or may have imagined at one point.
Yeah, I it's pretty much what you alluded to, like being less restrictive,
Mm, mhm,
right? So I think that and I think also to it always, and this could just be the type of clinician that I am, like it's so important for me with my clients that we go back to the family of origin, right? So
mm,
when we talk about the narratives that
yes.
those around us mirrored for us, because I think if we're talking about trauma, we
Mm,
have this idea like I'm never going to be that, I'm never
mm,
going to do that, right? And we become so restrictive because we think that, okay, I want to beat this statistic, I want to get away from that, but we're not fulfilled, right? So
mm,
we see a lot of people that come to us, they've done all of the things, well, they thought
mhm.
they've done all of the things, the right things, and they're not happy, and they make good money,
Yeah,
that
accomplished.
they're
Yeah,
accomplished, right? They're successful, but they're still unhappy.
yeah,
And I think that, like naming that, so like naming the family pattern,
yes.
one part, and we can talk about this like for months, right? But specifically for individuals who are survivors of
Mm,
child sexual abuse,
mm,
right?
mhm.
Just grieving that loss of their identity,
Yes. Of
right?
the innocence.
Of their innocence, and going through life like in this, like holding their breath in a sense, just waiting to like find the thing that
Mm,
is going to allow them to breathe,
the safety.
the sa- the safety, until, and I think we'll get into this, like some tools, like how to build that safety within
Yes.
first, because that exploration of trying to find safety outside of themselves and not
Mhm.
within, that's grief, or
Yes.
just like grieving a childhood that
Didn't
they
get.
never that they didn't get,
Yeah.
like. And when we talk about like comparison, like you can't talk about your childhood with someone, so that's grief too,
Yeah.
right? And so redefining what you don't like, building what you don't have the language for, is grief too, because I
Yeah.
think when you do try to rebuild like a life that is safe, that is love, that is freeing, that does come with letting go.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's such a big part of it. And not to get too far ahead, but in talking about things that will help, it is the idea of, we thought it would be this way. Or when going, using your example of safety, it's supposed to be that way. I'm supposed to be safe in my home. I'm
Mm,
supposed to be safe in my community. I'm supposed to be safe with my family. That's not my reality, but I can create safety. I wasn't safe then, but I can be safe now.
mhm.
And I know the world doesn't always feel safe. So sometimes we're constantly rejecting the narratives around us. And we
Yeah.
have to remind ourselves, okay, in this moment, right
Mhm.
here, right now, I'm safe. You
Yeah.
and I know that takes a lot of work.
Yes.
But even still, like whether it's the safety you didn't get, or society tells us, by a certain age, you should be married, you should have children, you should have the career, you should have the house, you should have the dog, you should have the American dream.
Yes. And what is that? Like, what is that?
And let me tell you, it don't always work that way, right?
Mhm.
And then if you tag on church culture, it's like,
Mhm.
you know, premarital sex, and no this and no that, and you
Yes.
can't do
Yes.
this, and no, 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 no. And then you're left feeling like, well, I don't know what to do because I only know what not to do. Then you find yourself kind of like trying to figure out where you fit in the world, where everyone's telling you what you're supposed to do, but no
Mhm.
one's really telling you how.
Yeah. And
So
you're
you're just
standing still.
you're
Like
just
you're then at that point, you're at that point, you're standing still.
Mhm.
Just then life is like passing you by, because you feel like, every step that I take, it doesn't look like what I have in mind, because I
Yes.
have all these external opinions, and so it's just best that I just stand still. Like,
So I have this so I have a large family on both sides, and
mm,
I honestly, it was an internal pressure. It was not a pressure that anyone else put on me, but it was
mm,
an internal pressure I put on myself to be a good example, right?
mm,
And so I took on this idea that I had to show the others what's
mm,
possible, right?
mhm,
Anybody asked me to be the crusader for the family? No one.
mhm,
And
mhm,
honestly, they probably didn't even care. But here I
mhm,
am carrying this burden for years. And I remember I burned myself out so bad in undergrad doing everything, right?
mhm,
And I had to take a year off from school. And in my mind, I was in turmoil because I'm like, I'm
mhm.
deviating from the plan. I'm supposed to be doing this, and
This,
this is
yeah.
the timeline, and blah, blah, blah. And then I ended up getting engaged, and oh my God, it was like, okay, I have to go back to school because I I can't, like, it's gonna mess the plan up. I gotta keep going. I
Mhm.
gotta finish. I gotta be the one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I went to grad school before I was emotionally, financially, and mentally ready for it.
Mm,
I struggled through it. And I
mhm,
remember the first semester, a grad assistant asked me, like, who is this taskmaster on your back telling you you got to do all of this?
mhm,
And I had to look in the mirror and be like, oh, It's me.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's me. No
Mhm.
one asked for this. And I had to
Mhm.
really question, do I even want this? Am I doing this because
Mhm.
I want it, or am I doing this to prove a point?
Mhm.
And it did come down to I really did want it, but the motivation behind why I wanted it changed. Fast
Mhm.
forwarding, my husband and I get married, and I realized also some things in my plan. I was just like, you know what? God laughs at your plan sometimes anyway. I'm
Mhm.
just going to let that go. So I
Mhm.
let go of those timelines, but there were still things that I expected.
Mhm.
And I was very disappointed, right?
Yes.
Because they were my expectations, not things that I had communicated, not things that I talked about, just
Mhm.
expectations.
Mhm.
And then we were told that we would not be able to physically have children.
Mhm.
We went through infertility for 5 years. And
Wow.
in those 5 years, everyone I knew had a baby.
Mhm.
And we were going to baby shower after baby shower. We were celebrating people because I certainly believe in I'm going to support you because when you're blessed, you move out the line and I move up,
Mhm.
right? So I'm
Mhm.
celebrating, but I was grieving. I'm
Mhm.
like, listen, I did things the quote unquote right way. Why do I feel like I'm not being like honored for that?
Yeah. Mhm.
Where's my prize for
Mhm.
doing what
Mhm.
they said I should do?
Mhm.
Why does this feel like a punishment? Now,
Mhm.
granted, thankfully, God did eventually bless us, but there was 5 years of grief. And in
Mhm.
that time, my brother died. Like there was
Mhm.
so much loss that I
Mhm.
recognize now on the other end that it wasn't the right time,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because if I had to go through all of those traumatic experiences with a child, it would have been crazy.
Mhm.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future holds. So in the
Absolutely.
meantime, we're still grieving what we think should be.
Should. Should.
Should.
Mhm. And you bring up, as you were talking, I was thinking about those who identify as an eldest daughter
Mm,
or firstborn daughters of just that's grief too, right? Because when we're talking about identity, right, there's a lot of labels placed on eldest daughters by default that
mhm.
I'm an eldest daughter
Me
that
too.
we that we necessarily didn't ask for. And so
Being
I
the
think
third
that's
parent.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's grief too of like moving away from that and
Mhm.
actually like really exploring what do you want? Like
Yeah.
what do you want? What do you need outside of the validation or the approval of family, friends, society? Like
Mhm.
what is it that you want to do that may disappoint others?
That part.
And
That part.
can you be okay with disappointing others? Because if not, it you then develop bitterness,
Yes.
right? And being offended, unforgiveness, like all
Mhm.
of those things, because there's something that you want that's going to require letting go or just redefinement. Like
Mhm.
working with my clients in grief, like we spend a lot of time of like redefining what their world is going to look like,
Yeah.
because their assumptive world is shattered. Their assumptive world included their loved one, it included the routine, it included the best friend, included all these things, these people, these places that they never thought that they will lose.
Yes.
They lost it, them, the plate, whatever. That shattered. And so they have to like rebuild. And what does that
Yeah.
look like?
Yes.
It's hard.
And what does that look like in this new role? Because you
Right.
can't go into redefining your new normal thinking about things the way it was before. Right?
Exactly.
Like even when my brother died, I mean, I always would joke and say I might as well have just been the oldest child anyway, but being the oldest
Hmm.
daughter and he was the only boy, it was like,
Hmm.
You know,
It was already.
yeah, you're just here to hold space.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
But it, I remember thinking to myself, who am I
Mhm.
without a brother? Like,
Right.
I have always been the middle child.
Mhm.
Who am I now? You know what I mean? What does
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
look like? He was the
Yeah.
only son. So what does that look? What does that look like?
Mhm.
Who am I now without that part of me?
Mhm.
You know, and even in losses after that, I'm like, these were not only parts that help, you know, make me who I am, but again, like you said before, part of my routine, you know.
Mhm.
And that goes along with career paths. I remember being laid off, and
Mhm.
honey, I was grieved. I was
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
I can't believe you just fired me.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
my friend would say, we did not get fired, we got laid off. Whatever. Tomato, tomato. I ain't had no job. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I remember being like, I can't believe this is happening. I don't know what to do with myself. Like,
Mhm.
I since I was able to work, I've been working. And
Yeah.
to not have a job was very hard for someone who's very used to a routine.
Mhm. Mhm.
And not only did I not did I no longer have a job, I was laid off a month after I graduated grad school. So I'm already
Mm.
adjusting to not going to school, going
Right.
from work to school. I'm adjusting from not going to my internship. I'm adjusting from what has been my life for the past year, 2 years, 3 years to
Mhm.
now I ain't got no job and I'm not in school. What am
Yeah.
I supposed to do?
Mhm.
How do I function, right? And
Yeah.
you don't even realize that losing that routine, that schedule, that sense of normalcy is also that. But going even beyond that, what about things, dreams that didn't come true or haven't come true yet? Or feeling,
Mhm.
I work with a lot of people who, I like to say, don't should yourself, right?
Mhm.
But at the
Mhm.
same time, when you think that you should be further in life,
Mhm.
right? And you're looking around at people who, one, we do acknowledge they have a different path, right? A different career choice and all of those things. But at the end of the day, you still kind of feel like, well, dag, what am I doing
Yeah.
in life?
And I to add to that too, we don't always know people's sufferings too,
Mm.
right? And so I think social media can be a tool, but I
Ooh.
also think that social media can like not be your friend if you are in the state of like rumination, right? Because
Mm.
how the algorithm works, like you look up one thing and then next thing you know, you're just
Everything is flooding you with
seeing,
that same
and
thing.
then it just adds to like you're already self-critiquing yourself of like the goals that you didn't achieve, or some rough patch, and
Mhm.
miraculously online you're
Now
seeing
everything's
so every everybody is doing either the same thing that you want to do, or they have what you want to have, and then now you feel like something is personally attacking
mm,
you, like this is
mm.
this is personal,
Yeah.
right? And so just kind of like having that balance of like when it comes to social media, that it's just a small portion of
Mhm.
people's lives, and it may look appealing, but you also don't know what that person had to do or suffer or, cry to get it.
Mhm.
And I think if we sit with people long enough, like just to ask their story,
Mm.
we wouldn't want it. We'd be
Right.
like, oh, congratulations, you absolutely deserve that.
Listen.
I'm going to sit where I am and I'm going to go through
Listen.
my process because yeah, you definitely deserve everything that you have, because I don't think I would have the capacity to even navigate what you just told me.
Sometimes I'd be like, the other day, I was, well, I was talking to someone and they were just reminding me how blessed I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, I might be being a little bit ungrateful right now. And I'm not being
Mhm.
ungrateful in the sense that I'm not grateful for my life, but I'm
Mhm.
like, just because I'm blessed don't mean that everything is going perfectly.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I'm on the
Mhm.
same struggle bus over here. I got
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
tools and work the same work and manage my thoughts and manage my emotions
yeah.
and all the things like everybody else. Because just because it looks one way, like you said, doesn't mean that that's the whole story.
Yeah.
We all got our
Yeah.
own individual struggles, collective
Yeah.
and all the above. But you brought up such a
Absolutely.
good point. Is that the next point? Is that social comparison definitely intensifies identity grief with the social media and with cultural expectations of success.
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
For a lot of people, right? For a long time, maybe it was, for a long time, it was like getting married, right? Getting married and having
Mm.
children was the goal. And
Mhm.
then, there was the shift towards education. So now going to college is the goal, right? But
Mhm.
just because you don't do either of those, does that mean your life is not as successful, right? Like
Yeah.
you can get a trade, you can start a business, you can be success. Success is defined by the individual. But if we're
Yes.
not careful, we'll begin to look at our lives and judge ourselves
Mhm.
because of what someone else has, which really is like, but would you have done the work in school? Probably not. It's like,
Yeah.
was that for you? No. So when
Mhm.
you have, like, the other day I was thinking about this topic and I texted a few of my friends and I just said, I'm so proud of you. And
Mhm.
and my best friend said, did you mean to send that to me? And I was like, no. Of course I did. Like, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we are all doing our best
Yes.
to
Yeah.
survive in a
Literally.
world that sometimes feels like it's meant for us to fail.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
don't have to have certain things to be successful in this world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Surviving every day, honey, you are a
Mhm.
success story.
Mhm. Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you did graduate from high school, if you did graduate from college, if you have a job and you are providing and you are putting food on your table, or you are surviving starting over, because
Yes.
some people have to start over,
Literally.
and the
Mhm.
strength to do that.
It's hard. It's so hard. And I tell my clients that's navigating through
Mhm.
grief and trauma that when you're the one in your family to
Yeah.
like do the opposite, you're the disruptor,
Yes.
right? You're the disruptor of that. And it gets lonely because you have data now,
Mhm.
like, oh, that was actually dysfunction, that was not normal, right? And so doing something new, like starting over, is like you starting over with no blueprint. So you're starting
Right.
over with no like language for what you see and you visualize, right?
Yes.
And so that gets lonely too, because unfortunately that's scary for some people.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
even though they know the discomfort and staying where they are, they know what they're getting, they know the outcome, they're still willing to stay in that for
Mm.
safety, for
Yes.
comfort, because it is just way too scary to do something different. Like
Yes.
it's like there's so many risks with doing something new that it is just more comfortable. Like, I already know what I'm going to get from this.
Mhm.
I already know. So I'll stay in this. And I think also too, redefining what identity is. Like,
Mhm.
identity, I love what you said of like, it's not so much about like doing, but being,
Yes.
right? Like doing less, being more. Like
Mhm.
when I
Oh.
think about
Yeah.
yeah, when I think about women and like identity, how like society and culture has tied womanhood to
Mhm.
two things: our ability to partner, get married, and our ability to mother.
Mm.
And if you, by choice, choose not to do those two things,
Mm.
you are you're excluded. You're
Yes.
not looked as a woman
Mm.
because you made these decisions to not get married and to not become a mom. And so that's grief too, of
Yes.
just making that decision. Like I truly believe like one of the tools for navigating this is two things: is trust in yourself
Mm,
and the ability to make independent decisions
yes. Hmm.
without external influence,
Yes.
right? Like trust yourself, like this is what I want for myself. This is what I need for myself. And this is what I'm going to decide to do. Even though people may say how much you're going to regret not being married or not raising children, like
Yeah.
this is still a decision that I'm willing to make, even if it's going to disappoint
Mm.
people. Because
The same people who ain't gonna help you anyway, but that's a whole
yeah,
nother story.
because people are fleeting. Like people are flawed. Like yes, people are going to say how much they're going to support you, and that's kind of like with grief. Like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we have
You don't
clients
stick
that
around
lose
long enough.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, you. I
Once the
mean,
funeral's over, once the loss happens,
it
or
turns into daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, bi-weekly, then monthly, quarterly. They're gone.
and don't appear to be okay.
Right.
Don't put on a mask and
Yeah.
act like you're okay, because then they
Yeah.
really don't think you fine and stop
Exactly.
together.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that redefinement of what is identity for you,
Hmm.
what is success for you, because I think we've all seen that we can do all of these things.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's always going to be something else to do.
Yes. Yes. They're never satisfied. So if other people's expectations are only going to cause you to feel more grief, then you might as well
Mhm.
not. You might as well look within yourself and see what you want, what makes you
Yeah.
happy. Because to start with, it was their expectations to begin with that got you in this mess in the
Mm-hmm.
first place. So you
Hmm.
might as well define, who you are, your identity, as an individual, and what you
Yeah.
actually want out of life. And that,
Yes.
honestly, I don't feel like, and this is, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I don't feel like identity it's not fixed. It's flexible. We're constantly adjusting, redefining, and repurposing, replanning, going back to the drawing board, our identity. Now, there are core pillars, right,
Yeah.
of who we are, but we're constantly evolving as an individual. And if you're not, then that's a problem.
Yeah. And
You
it's not fixed. And to add to that, a big part is the relinquishing of control. Like
Mm-hmm.
the control of it has to be
It
this
has to
way.
be. It's
And so
supposed to
it's
be.
supposed to be this way. And so
Hmm.
if there's anything opposite, it has to
Yes.
be wrong. And I'm a testament to that. So, starting out as a social worker, I've always wanted to work in hospice. Like that
Which you
was
do not hear ever.
that was my goal. Like I advocated for an internship in hospice in undergrad. I went
Mm.
on to my master's and specialized in aging and health. And I'm like, I'm gonna do hospice full time and I'll do whatever else I want to do on the side. But that's what I'm gonna do.
And God
And
bless you, honey, because
and so I was uprooted into palliative care, and I was like, what? What
mm,
what is this? And so, not to get too spiritual, but in the Bible it says trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding.
mhm.
If I would have led with my own
Yeah,
understanding, I would be in disobedience
and nothing
because
would have
it,
worked
it
anyway, and you'd still
yeah,
be disappointed and grieving that I didn't even
anyway
was
because of what I had in my mind. So in
Yeah.
my mind was fixed that I was going to do this.
Mhm.
And so when that changed, I'm like, I grieve because
Yeah.
it wasn't what I wanted.
Mhm.
At the time, I
Right,
didn't know what that was leading to. And then
right.
with this new position as a pediatric clinician, I never wanted to work with kids.
Mm,
Like I said, that is not my thing. I'm going to work with the older adults.
mhm.
I advocate for them, all the things. But then like do not lean to your own
Right.
understanding. And so our sometimes our own understanding can derail us. So a
Hmm.
lot of times it's us. It's
Yes.
not necessarily, at some point it's not our family of origin, it's not our trauma. It's sometimes it's just us of just like wanting to control, because it goes back to that
Yes.
safety that we talked about. That like, oh, this is like not going according to plan, or
Right.
going according what I have in my mind. This is wrong. And
Right.
it's not, right? So when you say it's not fixed, it's true. Like your identity, because you're always changing.
Yeah.
And so
Always. You should be. I have clients who, sometimes will come to me and they'll say, well, my friends, my mom, my whatever, they said I'm changing. And I was like, well, ain't that what you paying me for?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
we're not going to be meeting every week for you to be the same.
exactly.
The problem that they have with your change is that your change requires them to change.
Absolutely.
And they're not the ones who asked to go to therapy. but
Exactly.
but
And
but going in, being within your boundary, being within your,
yes.
changing your thinking and all of that, it puts them in a different place in your life. And when
Absolutely.
we actually decide to be flexible enough to look at our life and say, okay, this is where I am right now. It's not where
Hmm.
I thought I would be, but this is where I am right now. And here's what I can do with it, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that we're going to have full control over it, but
Hmm.
here's my part of it, right? I
Hmm.
can redefine my purpose. And like you said, yes, there are external factors. That's one of the things that I think is most unfair about life is that you
Hmm.
can do everything in your power to do the right thing. And then somebody else's actions can come and uproot your entire life, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the part that I'm when I meet Jesus, I got some questions.
Yeah. Yes,
But
exactly.
even
Hmm.
within that, right? There's a point within that where we say, okay, what part do I play in this?
Hmm.
That happened to me, but at what point am I allowing the results of that, the response to that, or the ramifications of that to control me more than what actually happened?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so where can I make the behavior changes? Where can I make the thought processes changes? Where can I, look at my behavior patterns and flaws in thinking? And how can I adjust that in a way where
Hmm.
it it doesn't necessarily make me control the wheel, but it at least puts me back in the driver's seat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Controlling the gas, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
puts me back in a position where my behavior alters my future and not allowing the loss of identity, because in that loss we have a multifaceted compounded layers of emotion, right,
Hmm.
that stop us because of the disappointment, the shame,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
fear, the embarrassment. Sometimes starting over
Yeah.
is embarrassing. People stay in relationships
Hmm.
because of the embarrassment of how much time was invested in that relationship,
Hmm.
and they would rather be miserable
Hmm.
and embarrassed
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
starting over.
Hmm.
A lot of marriages happened because they were too embarrassed to call off the wedding.
Hmm.
They were too embarrassed to start over in a career that from a career that they are unhappy with, or
Hmm.
too
Absolutely.
embarrassed because of what other people are going to think, that they stay in an identity that no longer serves them. So they suffocate. So many
Yes.
people are suffocating of under the weight of this identity that doesn't even belong to them anymore,
Exactly.
where there is an opportunity to redefine who you are.
Yeah. Yes.
But sometimes the emotions crush us
Hmm.
to a place where we don't even feel strong enough to be who we're supposed to be,
Absolutely. And
or be who
I
we can be, and not what
exactly.
we think we're supposed to be.
Exactly. And when I have clients and they are like in that spot, we often like sit and I ask them of like what what part or how are you participating at this point in your suffering,
How
right?
are you participating in your
Like
suffering? Yes.
because at some point you are suffering when you know internally it's time to move, it's time to shift, and you pack that down,
Yes.
you are suffering
You are.
and you are participating in that. And so what part are you participating in your own suffering? And what is, and sometimes life is not a straight line, it's a rhythm. So like
Mhm.
what
Mm,
rhythm are you in? Like
mm.
your rhythm may be, this doesn't define me anymore, like
Yeah.
I'm just not there anymore, and I want to do something different.
Yes.
But I think that when it comes to identity, I think we have to be honest with ourselves when we don't do the things that we really want to do,
Mhm.
that we are suffering.
Yeah.
And suffering in my world, in the medical world, that looks, like medical terms, that looks really different.
Right.
But I think in this side, like suffering has a name too. Like I think
Yes.
suffering is like continuously to live in something that the grace has lifted. Like there's
Yeah.
no grace there anymore, and you, because it's familiar, because it's
Mhm.
it's comfortable, you just stay in there. But then, like you said, like you're ashamed, you're sad, when you're seeing other people like moving ahead.
Yeah.
But it's like there's an opportunity for you to do the same thing. But I think
Yeah.
what you said was a good point of just like people staying in things because of shame.
Mm.
And then I think also external opinions too.
Yes. Mhm.
It's specifically when we talk about like marriage, right?
Mhm.
And you stay no matter what. I think that narrative can be
Mhm.
harmful,
Yeah.
right? And I think that narrative can definitely play a part in one suffering, because they really want out, but they have this fear of
Right.
like being pushed out if they choose to do a different way that serves them better.
Mhm. And and that's not to say that everyone should just up and leave, but
Oh
at
no,
the
no,
same time,
don't say Noni and Kiera.
don't tell. We did not tell you to leave
We
your
did
partner,
not say
okay?
that.
But what we
Or
are
his
saying
husband.
is that you don't have to suffer in silence, and if you're
Mm,
not doing something to promote change, then you are promoting this type of stagnation, right? Or
yeah.
this type of crushing emotional state because nothing is changing, right?
Hmm.
And yes, it takes both people, right?
Hmm.
And that's also something to consider, but that we'll talk about that on the
Yeah,
marriage
yeah,
episode. But
absolutely.
what would you say as we start to wrap up? What would you say to a person who has listened to all that we said and say, my life is not going the way that I expected it to go. I've
Mm,
had more challenges than successes. I started off well, I fizzled out somewhere, or something happened, but
mm.
I'm ready to make my life better and I'm ready to do my part. What would you say to that person?
I would say first name it.
Mm,
Name it for what it is. If it's grief, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling embarrassed, if you're feeling shame, if you're feeling fear, if you're, just name it, because that's the only way you're going to navigate it. Like you can't navigate something that you haven't named. So I would
mhm,
start first with naming where you are. Um, the second thing that I would suggest or recommend is go to a trusted person
mm,
to share. Not everybody is worthy of your vulnerability. So I would not recommend putting a post on social media or anything like that. But
mhm,
someone that that can cover you, that can comfort you, that can care for you, that can consider you
mhm.
in where you are, to hold you accountable. Because I think when you share news like I'm ready to change,
Yeah.
that person is going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you said this, what's the next step? Right.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I would say is start small. Like
Yes.
micro steps leads to macro results.
Love that.
So you have this idea, does not mean tomorrow quit your job,
Right.
or
We did not
just make the like these big change, because what happens is you do that and something goes wrong, then you're back to critiquing yourself
Yes.
or shaming yourself and ruminating on why you should not have done something different, right?
Mhm.
Those negative narratives is just going to constantly be in your head, like you shouldn't have done that, right? So I think start small, right? Okay, starting small, write it out.
Right.
What changes do you want to make within the next month? And habit stack, right? So I don't know if let's say working out, I guess.
Mhm.
Habit stack can be, all right, during the week, are you going to work out in the morning, or are you going to work out in the evening? And so what's your normal routine that you're already doing already that you can add in a walk, maybe
Mhm.
30 minutes?
Mhm.
Then the next week, maybe you do 45. And if you realize 45 is too much, that's your capacity. That right now the rhythm that you're in is 45 minutes.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
I
And
love.
then I would just like encourage the person to not give up. Like, if you know it's time to do something different, is you're not going to get any sleep about it,
Mm.
whatever that different is. So that difference
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be doing something. It can just being like,
Yeah.
you need to be something different in order to
Mm.
get to where you need to be,
Yeah.
right? And so who you are right now is no longer sustainable where you're trying to go, right? So what is that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
um and I also would just say that nothing is ever wasted. So I
Mhm.
think a big part of this, like in grief, we also got to give ourselves grace too,
Yes.
right? Because yeah, we may have done, or we may have, missed things, or things may have happened, but those things that happened, it led us where we are today. And
Yes.
there were some things along the way that really helped us. And so we
Yeah.
cannot dishonor that, right?
Yes.
Because it holds a place.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love everything about what you said. I mean, and I think that this episode is going to be so helpful for so many people. It's a conversation that this definitely won't be the last. Like
Yeah.
this is an ongoing topic because this is an ongoing issue. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like more than anything else, especially with the way the world is going right now, there are so
Mm-hmm.
many people. I think about all the people who even before, millennials lived through all the crises, right? So like,
Yeah.
when the job market and the recession in 2008, right? And people were losing their jobs and losing their pensions and losing their
Mm-hmm.
retirement, and you got people who have gone from like suits and ties to being greeters at Walmart, right? Like
Yeah.
I think about pastors who, pass the torch to someone else and their
Yeah.
identity has been in that role for so long, that transitioning parents who
Caregivers.
parents who become empty nesters, right?
Yes.
Your role has been to parent,
Mm-hmm.
caregivers. If you lose the loved one or if they recover, you're no longer in that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many other positions, right? Even with
Mm-hmm.
in the pandemic, how many career changes had to be made? How many
Yeah.
people have developed some sort of social anxiety and you don't feel like the once bubbly person you used to be, right? So
Yes.
there are all of these things that can affect the person, affect their identity, affect their life, affect their
Yeah.
future. And
Mm-hmm.
and this is something that we have to give the name. Identity grief has a name tonight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's so many helpful tools that you shared for people to begin. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the end all be all, but it's a way to begin addressing the identity grief you may have. And I'm going to leave you guys with a few reflection questions. You can answer them in the chat. The first question is, what version of yourself are you grieving right now?
Mm-hmm.
What expectations or timelines did you once hold for your life that have changed? And what emotions come up for you when you think about the version of you that you imagine becoming? And what parts of your current life are still growing, even if they look different than what you expected? Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you, Noni, for joining me and having a wonderful conversation about identity grief. I just could talk about this all day, but I
I
can't.
know.
What a wonderful conversation. Sorry for my fidgeting. I had a spider in my hair earlier today, so I can't stop
Oh my God.
my hair.
You look fabulous.
So sorry for all the movement, but I'm still kicking, and that was at 11 o'clock this morning. But I appreciate this conversation so much. I just really believe it's going to help so many people. So I appreciate you once again. Where can people follow you? How can they buy your book?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram at I am Noni-Ife. So that's IAMNONIIFE. And to purchase the journal, you can purchase it at www.beyondgoodbyeco.com.
Okay, and again, I'm Kiera Moore. You can follow Kiera Moore Therapeutic Services for coaching, for booking events. If you have suggestions for the podcast, if you are looking for a therapist, you can go to embracingoak.com. We have many therapists who are willing and available to help. Thank you for sharing, commenting, interacting with us. This is Self Care Sound Mind, the podcast. And on this season, we are giving name to the grief that no one ever talks about. Our next episode, episode 4, is going to be the pain of no closure. That is going to be good. Ambiguous loss, ambiguous
Mhm.
grief, not getting the closure that we deserve, still
Mhm.
going through the emotional process, and how
Mhm.
do we manage through that with compassion.
Mm.
That is going to be a great episode as well. Stay tuned. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your night.